What's up, Totem Pole Nation? Welcome back to Lambo and Matt's World of Sports. And spring football is almost here. The UFL starts their first season as the combination of the USFL and the XFL on March 30th. We're going to get into some key guys from the big teams, as well as a little bit more of a dive into what these different rules are. Obviously, the kickoff rule has already started to influence into the NFL, so we'll get into other different rules that could, have some long-term implications on the future of football, as we've seen in the past. Before we get into that, we got to always make sure to shout out Sideline Sports Network. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We've got all of our socials scrolling at the bottom if you want to give us a follow. Make sure to visit TotemPoleNation.com for some gear. Like, got a new hats, it looks like. We've got other hats like this and more styles. We've got T-shirts, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, cups, bags. We got everything you need. It's all on the website. Make sure to go there, support the boys if you can. Without further ado, let's get into the spring football conversation, the UFL, right now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that the NFL has been popular, especially with free agency, but we'll talk about that later. The UFL, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson said we're going to combine the leagues and call it the United Football League. All right, so obviously it used to be called the USFL. They have two conferences. They had the USFL conference and they had the XFL conference. So the USFL conference is the two-time defending champions and the Birmingham Stallions, Houston Roughnecks, Memphis Showboats, and the Michigan Panthers. The XFL conference, they have the Arlington Renegades, the DC Defenders, San Antonio Brahmas, and St. Louis Battlehawks. By the way, Destroying has been named the starting kicker for the St. Louis Battlehawks.
San Antonio.
San Antonio Brahmas. All right, that's huge, right? Remember, college, they told him to either you want to play college or you got to go to YouTube. He chose YouTube. He surpassed over 10 million followers. Now he's back. His passion is kicking. But not only that, all right, the season starts in 19 days. Also, they got two games, which the two games is on my birthday on March 31st. So Saturday, March 30th, the defending champs of the Birmingham Stallions versus the Arlington Renegades. That's going to be Saturday at 1 o'clock in Arlington, Texas. The St. Louis Battlehawks versus the Michigan Panthers. That is Saturday, March 30th at 4 o'clock. And, of course, you got the DC Defenders versus San Antonio Brahmas. My birthday, March 31st at 12 o'clock at the Alma. And, of course, the Houston Roughnecks are playing in the Rice Stadium, which is surprising, I guess. I never saw this coming. But they played in Memphis Showboats and the Houston Roughnecks March 31st at 3 o'clock. So normally by weeks, they have about 4 games. There's 10 weeks into a season, obviously. When I look at the USFL, Jordan Tamu might not be starting. But as far as quarterbacks, Jordan Tamu and Luis Perez have been big names. They've been some guys. Even A.J. McCarron, right, played for the Cincinnati Bengals. He got signed, obviously, and then now he's returning to the Battlehawks. So I think that's great news right there as well. When it comes to this football league, I think it's great. I'm going to hand it off to you in a second so you can explain, the rules and extra point and stuff. I don't know who's going to win this. The reason why I say I don't know who's going to win this because, like I said, Bo Scarborough, who was the running back from Birmingham, actually retired. So that was the guy that he relied on to win the games, obviously, within the first 2 seasons. They had a great system. Skip Holtz, the head coach, is great. So, like I said, this could be anybody's year to win it, right? But if I'm going to pick, I'm going to choose the two-time defending champs and the Birmingham Stallions. But go ahead. My pick will probably be the Birmingham Stallions. But go ahead.
What's up, Coach Bald? We always love more football, baby. That's why we're here. That's why we're covering it. They might not be the prettiest games to watch. We get it. All right? We get it. But you know what else isn't the prettiest games to watch? The past 3 years at Lane Stadium. All right. Well, no. Let me correct that. The 3 years before this year at Lane Stadium. You know what else isn't fun to watch? Certain brands of high school football. But guess what people do every single season? They fill the stands. They watch football because it's the best sport in the world. So we're going to do our best to cover this to the best of our abilities. Now, you did give your shout out to the Birmingham Stallions, two-time USFL champs. The Arlington Renegades, after a disappointing regular season in the XFL last year, went on a streak and won the XFL championship last year. So that week 1 matchup of the Stallions versus the Renegades will be two champs going against each other in the newly united league. I think that game, if there's going to be a game that gets the most viewership besides the championship game, it should be this first game. These are the two best teams from both leagues. Now, the UFL dissolved a lot of teams from both leagues. There's 4 in each conference. There were 8 teams in both leagues to begin with. So they had a excess talent draft, basically, where they got to draft those players that were on those dissolved teams, as well as, free agency signings and stuff. There's going to be 10 regular season games, and then the playoffs will start. I'm going to go over some of the top guys that are on the Stallions and the Renegades going into that week 1 matchup, and then we'll get into the rules after that, because there are some like flag football element stuff when it comes to extra points. If you guys have played, like actual competitive flag football, the extra point system is a lot like how the UFL is doing it this year. Now, starting with the Stallions, all right, the two-time USFL champs, back-to-back USFL champs, could be seeing a new starter when it comes to the quarterback position this year. All right, Adrian Martinez. Does that name ring a bell? Big 12 championship quarterback from Kansas State that beat that TCU team that went on their run to the championship to ultimately get their asses kicked. But that quarterback was in a duo, right, with Will Howard.
Yeah.
He threw for 1,200 yards on 65% and had a 6-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, while also running for 10 touchdowns and 627 yards. So splitting time, this guy had, close to 2,000 total yards, and he had 16 touchdowns to just 1 turnover. I'm thinking that's going to be who their quarterback is going into this game. On top of that, they have Chris Orr. He's an interior linebacker. He's from Wisconsin. That's where he played his college ball. 2023, he was an all-USFL selection. And as a whole for this team, they have 6 former all-USFL selection players on the roster, as well as 13 plus former Power 5 players. Now, how far removed are a lot of these guys from their days in a Power 5 program? Some of them, not so much. Others, it's been like 10 years. So take that with a grain of salt. Not everybody I'm saying like, oh, this guy played at Clemson, this guy played at Bama or whatever. They could have played at Bama 10 years ago, all right? So it doesn't mean a lot for everybody, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Chris Orr, like I said, 2023 all-USFL selection. His senior year at Wisconsin, which was 2019, he had 11 and a half sacks. And then this past year for the Stallions, he had 81 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. And excuse me, that was not for the Stallions. He played in New Jersey. They picked him up in that draft that I was talking about. Wide receiver, guy fresh out of the NFL, Amari Rodgers from Clemson. Now, he played 3 years for the Packers. Nope, 2 years for the Packers, a year for the Texans, and a year for the Colts last year. Didn't have the biggest NFL career. Obviously, that's why he's now in the UFL. But at Clemson, he had 181 receptions, 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns. And then in his time in the NFL, he only amassed 250 and a touchdown. We'll have to see. But if he was on NFL rosters for 4 years, I'm not going to put it past him that he's going to be able to expose some of these DBs at this level. Now moving to their opponent, the Renegades, the XFL champs from last year. They have two 2023 all USFL or all XFL players, and they also have 13 plus former Power 5 players on this roster as well, led by a quarterback that you mentioned, Luis Perez. He played his college ball at Texas A&M Commerce. You ever heard of that? Me neither.
I heard of Commerce, but no, not in general. No.
Yeah, Texas A&M Commerce, definitely not a school known for their football output. But he, in his 2 years at that school, 665 completions, 8,000 yards, 78 touchdowns. All of those are school records, not surprisingly. Obviously, that's not something that we expect to see out of Texas A&M Commerce, but they've got a dog that's repping their team. He threw for 1,600 yards last year. That was fourth in the XFL at a 66% clip. 9 touchdowns. He did turn the ball over with 7 picks, but like I said, they went on a run to win the XFL championship last year, and he was the XFL championship MVP. Yeah, no doubt. Bald, when you look at the map of where these teams are, it's so weird. So is what I have not confirmed, is the Arlington team Texas Arlington, or is this like DC Arlington?
Texas.
Okay, thank God, because I was just in Arlington this weekend. I actually just got back to Blacksburg today from Arlington, like by DC. And I was like, there's no way that there's 2 teams within 5 minutes of each other. So I'm glad that it's Texas. But when you look at the map as a whole, it's like clump of teams, and then there's that one team up in Michigan. It's odd. No Florida team, I agree, is mind-blowing considering, almost every major city in Florida is a tourist destination. Why would you not, like tickets aren't expensive or anything. Like that would be a vacation type afternoon, go to an XFL game in the spring. There's no NFL, there's no college. But whatever. We don't have to, maybe they can talk about expansion after they've had a couple good seasons. Next up, linebacker Donald Payne. He's from Stetson University. I don't even think that they might have just been FCS, but I was thinking that they were D2. I could be wrong. He was a 2022 all USFL selection. Only player in either league that has ever recorded 100 plus tackles in one season. He had 117 in 2022. All right, so big time addition. Bounced around from NFL rosters 2017 to 2021. Now he's made his home in the XFL, now the UFL. Here's a name that I think if you've been watching football for a while, you'll immediately recognize. Also a linebacker, Vic Beasley. You remember him?
Yeah, Vic Beasley. Yeah.
For the Falcons, 8th overall pick, had 156 tackles, 37.5 sacks. In 2016, he had 15.5 sacks, which got him all-pro first team. 11 forced fumbles, 12 pass deflections, and an interception. Obviously, we're not expecting 2016 Vic Beasley out here, but when you have a guy who, I shouldn't say dominated a long stretch of time, but had a dominant season at the top level in the world when it comes to this game, you can't sleep on him. He played 7 games last year with the Vegas XFL team. He had half a sack and 15 tackles. It'll be cool to see him with, a full off season of training. He's actually going to be with the team from the start of the season, not join a couple games in. And then I know we talked about a kicker earlier in destroying playing for the San Antonio team. On this Renegades team, the punter is Marquette King. That guy from the
Pittsburgh?
Raiders.
Oh, the Raiders? He did play for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he played for Pittsburgh after. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Raiders, he punted for the Raiders for 5 years. He was all-pro second team in 2016 behind Pat McAfee. So I think he was unfairly pushed out of the league just because of the antics that he was doing as a punter. But at the same time, Pat was also a guy that was doing antics, but he was, the best of the best for like 3 years. He had a little bit more leeway. But it's going to be cool to see Marquette King in a football uniform. Wow, he should still be a man amongst boys in that league. Exactly, Bald. That's what I was talking about, man. Vic Beasley should still be a force to be reckoned with when it comes to that. All right. Now, we've got the highlights of those two guys, or those two teams. Now let's get into the rules. Crazy rules, all right? Now, hopefully this doesn't translate into the NFL, the extra points. Kickers need to be a part of football, all right? They just do. Too many games in history have been decided positively or negatively because of kickers to just phase it out of the game. It's different from like the fullback being phased out because that was kind of like an evolution. The fullback went from being a guy that was getting the ball a lot to where now guys that would have played fullback in the old NFL are just the hard-hitting running backs, like the downhill backs. Like if Mike Allstott played in today's league, do you think he'd be just like a fullback that plays 30% of the snaps? Hell no. He'd be a bruising running back, So like that's like an evolution. I think the extra point and the kickoff stuff is not so much evolution, more like erasing. And I don't understand it completely. I get the health stuff, like guys running full speed at each other, but I just feel like too many games have been decided with a kicker to just take it out. I mean, even going back to the Super Bowl with the Saints and the Colts, that surprise onside kick, which is no longer allowed in the NFL, surprise onside kicks, like I think that's ridiculous too. But the Saints started that second half. Instead of giving the Colts the ball back, surprise onside, they got it, and the rest is history. So and you could rattle off important kicks, important onsides, important extra points. We just saw one in the Super Bowl. Jake Moody missed an extra point, and they went to overtime and lost. So like I think the phasing out of kickers should be slowed down big time. That's a tangent. I just wasted some time. I'm sorry for that. Let's get into these rules. PATs. It's flag football style. All right. Teams will have 3 scrimmage play options. My fault. I'm reading here. Following a touchdown. If they want to go for 1 point, they go from the 2-yard line. If they want 2 points, they go from the 5. And if they want 3 points on the extra point, they go from the 10. So that is, if you've played any flag football in your life, that's how extra points work. That's what they're doing here. Kickoffs it's saying that they'll look more traditional than they did last year. They'll take place from the 20-yard line of the kicking team. Kickoff out of bounds will give possession to the receiving team 30 yards from the spot of the kickoff or when the ball went out of bounds. A kickoff that is untouched by the receiving team may only be recovered by the kicking team up to 20 yards from the spot of the kick. Touchback rules, same stuff. Every team in the NFC East is making moves except for the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't know why I'm surprised. No, put it back on the screen because I want to be – I need to – we're going to get into this. Paul, thank you for breaking the news. We're going to get into this in a video in a few minutes down the line. We're going to get into free agency and everything. Every team in the NFC East is going to get better through free agency and the draft. Commanders are the ones in the draft, but they're going to get, Drake May. So that's substantial. Good Lord, everyone's making moves except for Jerry. God. Saquon to the Eagles. All right. We'll get into that later. I'm going off on a tangent here. Good Lord, this is pissing me off. Touchbacks on kickoffs. Back to the rules. My fault. Bald, you're throwing me off here. Man. Touchbacks will be placed at the receiving team's 25. That's normal. Any punt that goes out of bounds inside the receiving team's 25 will be considered a touchback. Wow. So no coffin corner for punters in this league.
Nope.
Why?
They want it to be this league is more offensive happy. They want to score more points. This is more offensive friendly league.
Then why even have punters? Like, you're supposed to try to pin them back as far as you can. And the coffin corner is getting that ball out of bounds at like the 4 to like the 2. You know, like that's coffin corner.
I asked Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who turned heel. I'll ask him.
Yeah. He's been healed multiple times, though. He loves it. He loves it. He loves it. All right. Damn, that's crazy. Onside kicks are allowed at any point. Teams will have an alternate option to retain possession in the 4th. If a team is tied or behind during the 4th, it may elect to retain possession after a score with a 4th and 12 from its own 28. So that's interesting. Instead of, if they're down, instead of going for the onside, if they are tied or behind in the 4th, they can go for it on 4th and 12 from their own 28 to try and regain possession of the ball. If not, though, that you're basically signing a death sentence. So we'll have to see how that works. 2 forward passes. Teams will be allowed, as they were in both leagues last season, to throw 2 forward passes on one play. The ball cannot cross the line of scrimmage until the second one, but it's like if a guy throws the ball to his running back in the flat and the running back is still behind the line of scrimmage, he can throw it forward to him and he can then throw it forward again. That's definitely different from the NFL. Any part of the body other than the hands touching the ground will complete a catch or 2 feet. So that's basically the same. Defensive pass interference is a 15-yard penalty or a spot foul if the foul occurred less than 15 yards down the field. So the exact opposite of what the NFL does there. When you look at teams just chucking it down, the ball is past 15 yards, they're only going 15 on the penalty. If it's within 15 yards, it's spotted where the flag was. So they're not getting free first downs, it seems like. I kind of like that. Officiating department may stop a game at any time the ball is legally put in play to review a play that they deem reviewable. Okay, that doesn't seem too different from anything else. Challenges. Each coach may challenge any ruling, including fouls, potential fouls. So this is kind of what the NFL tried to do a few years ago, and it just did not work at all with the pass interference challenges. And then all the other challenge rules are the same. Overtime will consist alternating attempts to score from the opponent's 5-yard line with no kicks. So college overtime, basically. Except for they're not starting from the 25. It's like after they go, 3 or 4 overtimes in college, they start going for the 2-point thing. That's all of the overtime rules there. And that is all of the new or different rules for the UFL.
All right. As far as head coaches are very important. When you get into the game, when you watch the game, especially for the USFL, some of these players and these coaches are going to be mic'd up. So that's the great thing they normally do. I like them mic'd up. I like the play calls, I like to hear. So there's 8 coaches, former NFL coaches, former college coaches. Obviously, Bob Stoops for the Renegades, big-time Hall of Famer in Oklahoma after, did amazing things in Oklahoma. Sam Bradford. You got Skip Holtz, Stallions coach, Curtis Johnson, the Roughnecks head coach. John DeFlippo is an NFL guy. I think he was a former offensive coordinator for the Showboats. Mike Nolan is now the new head coach. He took over for Jeff Fisher for the Michigan Panthers. Wade Phillips is the Brahmahas head coach. Reggie Barlow is the Defenders head coach. Anthony Beck is the Battlehawks head coach. So these head coaches, especially assistants, they're going to be very, very important to watch. Now, the one game I want to get into that I think that comes on Sunday is the St. Louis Battlehawks versus the Michigan Panthers. Now, there's a Virginia Tech guy that is on the roster for the Michigan Panthers. New head coach, new system. The Michigan Panthers were struggling under Jeff Fisher as watching them. They couldn't find the quarterback play. The quarterback play was the main issue. Hopefully, the Michigan Panthers be better. But Adonis Alexander, former Virginia Tech guy, he was drafted by the Washington Redskins, 6th-round pick in 2018. He played for the Rams. He played for the 49ers and the Saints. He did play for the New Orleans Breakers in the 2022 USFL draft when it first started. And now he is on the Michigan Panthers. He was selected in the 2024 UFL, the Spiro draft. Obviously, the quarterback I've already mentioned is A.J. McCarron. He's been a veteran for a very, very long time in the league as well. I'm not going to get really too much into these other games. We'll get into it very, very close. But I think as far as UFL, I think it's going to be very, very exciting. Now, they had its ups and it had its downs with they lost some money. They lost all this stuff. But, I mean, it's everybody loses money. Everybody, the Rock is trying to create something that's never been seen. By the way, I want to let y'all know, just because they're in the UFL does not mean they can, doesn't mean, their career's at the end. You can go to the NFL. That's the whole point.
We've got Dallas got 2 Pro Bowlers from the USFL. Yeah. Our kicker, Brandon Aubrey, was on the USFL last year. Cavante Turpin, Pro Bowl returner, USFL.
So this is a pathway of what The Rock has been trying to do for a very, very long time. Because, like I said, how the NBA, it has, you can go, instead of going to college, you can go, overseas and stuff like that, kind of like that high school to pro. In the NFL, NFL, I mean, you have to go to college to play football. But now, you either go semi-pro and then you go overseas. But it's like that next step. If you don't make the NFL, you got the UFL. It's that next step that we all been waiting for a very, very long time. So like I said, maybe the style of plays, maybe whatnot is what y'all not used to as far as the NFL, as far as college. But I think it's going to be very, very exciting. I understand. I'm very old school. I like defensive games as well. But with the rules that Matt Pat already mentioned as far as like the 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point, this is an offensive league. That's why I said the quarterbacks are be very, very important. Like I said, A.J. McCarron, Jordan Talmadge, Luis Perez, those are going to be the guys to really watch out for, despite one of them not starting. It's a quarterback-friendly league. Whoever has the best stats is going to get signed by an NFL team. So it's quarterback-friendly. I'm very excited for when the season comes out. But like I said, we're in the middle of college basketball. We're in the middle of the NBA. So we'll see how much ratings this is. I think I don't have any problem with these ratings. But as soon as these games will start, you'll see more star players going out. Did you have anything else?
I think it was smart that they – so obviously the first weekend is in the down period before I think like the Final Four and then the championship the week after that. So, maybe the guys with wives that have been glued to their TV and their wives are like, hey, this weekend no basketball, right? Maybe they can sneak away and watch some UFL as well. But I think as a whole that people are already going to be glued to their TVs, and starting when, the real heat of March Madness is coming down to the wire, I think it's a pretty good strategy point. Like if they were to have started it now, a couple weeks after the combine or a week after the combine, I just don't know if it would have been as big of a draw. I think that they did a really good job of setting up themselves for success when it comes to TV viewership.
All right. Well, it's all your recap of the UFFL season. It will start March 30th and March 31st on my birthday. But this is it for Lambo Matt's World of Sports. Forget like, comment, subscribe, and Total Pole Nation. We want to thank you, Science, for them for the platform. We'll We'll catch you later. Y'all have a great night.